behind the scenes, it was a small group of people that were doing everything.
Welcome back to the GTM podcast. It's your host, Scott Barker.
I want to know how this insane growth actually happened.
Hello, my friends. Welcome back to the GTM pod. Pumped to be hanging with you, talking everything go-to-market, scaling companies. It is the time period where we need all the help we can get. So we try and get some of the smartest people I know and that are involved in the GTM community that have built companies and been part of scaling incredibly impressive revenue organizations. And we just get them to tell their stories and we chop it up. And hopefully you'll leave at the end of this conversation with some great nuggets that you can hopefully apply to your own business, your own job function. This one's going to be a fun one. I am joined by a good friend, James Isilay. James, welcome, man.
Thanks, Scott. And thank you for having me on the podcast. It's a real pleasure to speak to you again and to be part of this.
Yeah, thanks for being here. And I know it's late over there in the UK, jolly old England. So
I'm in Switzerland actually right now, so I'm actually like an hour later. So yeah, forgive me if I'm a little bit slow in any of my answers. Like it's 9 p.m. and I've been working since 7 a.m. But it's all good.
We'll pull it out of you. Switzerland. I love Switzerland. I got to do a ski trip there in Fischeralp a couple years back, and man, the whole town just looked like a fairy tale. It was gorgeous.
You should have been here this weekend. We had the Zurich Fest, which happens every 4 years. And it was like gorgeous weather. Like the river is like 24 degrees. So I can literally go down from my apartment and go swimming in the river. And then there was this huge festival. It's like must be over 1 million people in Zurich and like huge fireworks displays for 3 days. It's good fun.
Beautiful. I'll have to make it there in the summer. I loved it in the winter. I was up on the mountain and there was only this one little restaurant. So after a day of skiing, I'd go get some dinner. And I think 4 nights in a row, I ordered fondue. And the fourth time,
That was going to be heavy.
The waitress comes up. She's like, just so you know, like Swiss people only eat this for like special occasions. This is for like your birthday or like Christmas. Can't just eat this all the time. I'm like, listen, I'm only here for a week. I'm gonna live it up. But man, I loved it. All right, so quick bio for the listeners joining us. So James founded Cognism, well-known B2B sales intelligence company, back in 2015. So been at this for a long time and excited to hear all the lessons that have come with that. Previous to that, James worked as a quantitative trader and analyst, which is interesting, and studied information systems engineering. So not the kind of traditional founder path, I would say. But I guess walk me through when you originally kind of got the bug and had the crazy idea of maybe I should found my own company.
Yeah, so my dream job was being a trader. So, I started as an IT, building software systems at investment bank, UBS investment bank. And then I moved into trading, which is like my dream job at the time. And then moved into systematic trading where I built computer systems that actually traded the market. So I didn't trade the markets, the computer systems did. And then I kind of realized that my dream was my nightmare. Like it really wasn't. I think like all the things that make me strong as a CEO, like good, like I'm great at connecting with people. I'm great with messaging ideas. I love communication. I love solving problems. Generally, there's a thread there that I love connection and people. When you're a trader, you sit at a desk on your own, looking at a computer screen most of the day. Stressed out if you've because like a programming error there can cost like tens of thousands to millions of dollars, right? Like depending on what you're doing. So it's quite high pressure in that way, and it's quite on you the problem. So I was doing that. I got to a point where I was getting successful with that after years of grinding that out. And then I went to visit a friend of mine who I went to university with, and he had started a company called Alchemy, which at the time was like seen as an up and coming unicorn in the UK. And when I went into their office, like the energy, they had just raised money, and the energy in the office was like overwhelming. Like you could feel it as soon as you went into the office, like the energy level in the office. And I worked at the time at a Swiss utility in Switzerland, which was really like a government kind of had a government vibe to it and a government energy. If you've worked for like a government organization, but like usually
Slow moving,
yeah,
hard to
definitely.
get things done. Yeah, lots of bureaucracy.
Exactly. And the energy level when I walked into that room was like, wow, like it just hit you. Everyone was happy, everyone was bouncing off the ceiling. And I just was like, wow, I just feel it. I was like, I could feel the difference. I want to move to this. And that was kind of the decision point. And then my friend that was there said that he would like back me if I would start something myself. And so like fate happened, and then I had a chance to move on from that role that I was in as a trader, and then I took it, and I kind of the Financial Times had approached me to use their API for trading because they just launched their that, and so I started just experimenting with startup ideas, which were all fintech related initially, and then eventually, I ended up leaving, went on some incubator programs, and then found that I built a system for hedge funds to help them source new money, but that was a terrible market, it turned out, and so we pivoted into sales and marketing space. It's something I knew nothing about, but we started to collect contacts from this project that we built from the Financial Times, and then it was like, okay, what do we do with this data? And then scouting around, we found this sales and marketing case, and then explored the space, and then learned it from scratch.
It's such an interesting story. I didn't actually know that was the inception, where it was originally built for hedge funds sourcing new money, and then it was a pivot. And excited to go further.
We're in a program in Boston called FinTech Sandbox. It's still there. It's a great, if you're starting like a fintech company or even a data company, you basically can join that program for free, and they have like lots of free sources of data that you can start to build your company from. So I would recommend it because it's a really nice group of people as well. They're just super friendly. They taught me how to build my first investment deck. It really gave me a bit of momentum at a very early stage. I would recommend that.
And we'll go back to kind of the Cognism story shortly, but you mentioned something that kind of stuck with me. It was a powerful statement, and it was my dream turned out to actually be my nightmare. And I feel like a lot of people can probably relate to that because we make sometimes these decisions of what we want to be or how we see our lives going when we're quite young, and then we get attached to them. And particularly if you're driven, highly motivated, you kind of just make it happen, and then you find out it's nothing like it was in your head. What drew you to want to become a trader? Was it a misunderstanding of what the work would actually be? Was it the financial kind of upside? What was it that kind of drew you in?
I think initially it was I joined, I was a bit clueless when I left university. I got sponsored through university by the Ministry of Defense. So it was a program called DSG. So I spent a year out before university training to buy weapon systems, which was quite fun actually. But then when I left university, it was a boom time for the investment banks, and they offered me more than double what the Ministry of Defense offered me. And then the Ministry of Defense was kind of like, if you joined it, you might get lucky and land a great job, but it was kind of random. You might end up in a really horrible job, and you might end up there for like 20 years for the rest of your life. So it was kind of an easy choice to go into the trading world, investment bank, and I went in as an IT person. When you go in as an IT person, then you see these traders, and they're earning a lot more money, and they're making like it seemed like fun because I was super interested in markets and news. So that kind of drew me into that. And then building trading systems. Like it was fun to build computer systems that could read all these different types of data and make decisions. So that was also all those elements combined. The bit that I didn't really, I suppose, like knew that what it would be like is the stress of making and losing money. Especially like for me, if it's other people's money, for me that was even more stressful. And so like it's just a continuous stress because it's so fast paced, and if you make a mistake, it has huge consequences very, very quickly. Whereas like when you're building a business, you build it brick by brick, and you don't get the same intensity, you don't get the same stress, right? Like usually if you make a mistake, you've got time to correct. And so it doesn't have, unless you're running a medical company, in B2B data we're pretty safe, right? Like it's so that's a big difference for me. Like and so yeah, it just wasn't like when you're in that. I think the thing to step back is, if you like, what am I doing right now? Would I be happy if I was doing that 10 years from now, right? And I hadn't made, or 5 years from now. Like right now, I could say with my current role job and what I do, yeah, 100%. Like I love what I do right now. And with trading, yeah, I was not in a happy place, and I wouldn't want to have been doing that 5 years from now. But sometimes it's hard to like step back from the loop that you're living in, assess it, and say, I need to change something here, right?
Those moments are so pivotal for our growth, and they're often, so entrenched in fear of like the unknown.
Yeah, I remember once somebody saying to me at a party, they were like, "Oh, I'm 30 years old. Like I can't change my career now. Like I'm doomed." They said. Whereas I started Cognism at 35. I think I was like 35, 36, which is actually the typical age that I think is the average age that people found companies is around about that, from some study that I read.
Yeah, it's such a misnomer that everyone's like straight out of university. There's also a direct correlation between age and success too. I believe it's like the there is a drop off point, but roughly the older the founder when they start the company, the more likely they'll succeed, which is interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I had a good support base, right? Like family, a bit money, that meant that in a critical moment, like there was a time at the end of 2016 that we had, our funding had fallen through. We had one contract, but we weren't getting more contracts. I'd run out of money to finance things, and then I decided to, my co-founder went salary free for like 4 months, and I went and got consultancy work. So we keep going, and then I worked every morning, like lunch and evening, to try and raise funding. And so could have, like, that was a point where I could have given up, and it felt like maybe I should give up. And then it was like exactly the point where like if I like that yeah, that was like the point, right? That was the moment. I just had that recently because I'm doing another project on the side at the moment, which is like in a slightly different space. And again, had that feeling like I hadn't felt since 2016 of like, maybe this isn't going to work. And then exactly that point where I should have, like now I go like, actually, maybe just because I've had that feeling, it is going to work. Because like, other people have had that feeling at this point with this idea, and they've given up. And actually, like you're just pushing through that point of like and not giving up and just doing to get stuff done, and just pushing through that feeling is actually the barrier that you need to get to be super successful.
There's a great, I think it's a Terrence McKenna quote that's something along the lines of hurl yourself into the abyss and find out it's a feather bed. Oftentimes the hardest part is actually just making that insane decision to do that really hard thing. And then you find, after a lot of hard work, it's a lot not easier, but there is a light at the end of the tunnel, when you take those big risks.
If you're not happy with where you are right now, if you throw yourself into the abyss, you're going to be somewhere else, right? It might not be a feather bed. It might be a bed of nails, right?
But man, you're going to learn how to dodge those nails next time.
And it's going to make you, it's going to make you stronger one way or the other, right?
And then you'll have so much scar tissue that things will feel like a feather bed from there on out. I love that. I love it. Okay, so you go through this accelerator. You're learning to put like investment decks together. I believe you've bootstrapped up until this point. You've now hit 2016. Things aren't going as quickly as you need them to, so you start doing some consulting work. Your partner goes salary free. Your co-founder. What happens next? What was kind of the inflection point? Was it just convincing investors to buy yourself more time? Did you kind of figure out your ICP finally? What was that inflection point for you?
Yeah, it was actually one of our developers going for beers in in Macedonia. We had like two developers in Macedonia. We have like a development center right now in Skopje, and one of our developers went to a drinks event and then met an investor who was from Switzerland, whereas I live in Zurich, Switzerland. And then they mentioned us, right, and knew that we were looking to get funding. So it was a little bit of a chance encounter. Um, but again, I think this is again a point which like we chatted about just before this, about like personal connections being so important, right? I think it's really important to meet people and build good connections with people. So like right down to like my staff and my developers, I spend a lot of time meeting staff, and and again, like because I had a good connection with the developers, like personally, they had gone to this event, they knew the vision that we had, they communicated it to an investor that was there who was over in Switzerland. And then they came back, met me in Switzerland, and then had not seen a product so developed that actually had we'd had one contract, and then that's where I got my first investor from. And then that helped me to then once you got a lead investor, it's kind of easy to scoop up the rest of the interest. And so I'd been networking like crazy over that whole period anyway. And then as soon as I had one investor through the door, it was super easy to get the rest of it. I don't say super easy, but like I'd already done the work to get the rest of the investors. And so then I could pull the first round together, and then I could leave the consultancy job, and then go full time on Cognism.
That's huge. We had Manny Medina on here a few episodes back, and he was talking about this idea that you need to strategize and visualize a positive future as a leader, but then it's your job to infect everyone in the organization with that same future. And had you not done that with that developer, they wouldn't be as excited. The enthusiasm wouldn't come through their voice when they're talking to this investor that they met. So I love this idea of spending real time getting to know everyone.
Yeah, I do a lot of networking meeting people, like not just like staff, but also as much as I can customers, but also other people in industry. And yeah, I mean we do town hall once a month, just because I think it's so important to communicate vision, and it's so important to like fire up the team, and it's so like important for me to have that presence and to make sure the vision is going out and as much as we can. And it's important for me to think about the vision, right, and to be challenged on the vision that we have for the company and our positioning in the market, so that we have we can maintain an edge, and we don't get stale.
Is that developer still with you today?
He is actually, yeah. He just got promoted this week, actually. Yeah, so yeah, no, he is, yeah. Yeah, shout out to Dushan for helping us find investment.
Yeah, that's big. That's well above and beyond the scope of your typical developer. So that's awesome. All right. So looking back at that time period, so we'll call it early days of Cognism before you hit the growth rate that you have now, is what were the learnings there? Looking back.
So many, so many learnings. I mean, I was an IT programmer, so like I pretty much learned most lessons by stepping on the landmines, and then some I've avoided because we've had a good board or I've had good mentors, right? And but I think like the first one was hiring, right? Of course, right? Like every business is a people driven business, right? You need people to affect processes, to build those processes, and to kind of upgrade and keep evolving those processes. I wasn't very good at, I wasn't brilliant at hiring. I read some good stuff that helped me, like always hire in twos. Like that was a really important lesson. I did did do that one. It definitely helped us at the beginning because again it creates a bit of competition, and then also you never know why somebody's going to work out, especially when you're hiring and you don't have a lot of money. you're generally not hiring super experienced people, and also you don't know how to hire experienced people. You don't know what experience looks like. If I'm an IT person, I could hire IT people. Great, yeah, sure. But could I now I know how to hire salespeople and what to look in a salesperson or a marketer. First time founders, you got to be, unless you're you've got some exposure to that CEO role or you've got a really good mentor, you're going to be quite clueless on what makes a great marketer, what makes a great salesperson, what do you need in terms of finance to get going. So that was, I made mistakes in hiring, but and a little bit fired too slow. Like we had one or two people early in the business that weren't really adding value, and then I should have probably fired them in 2 months, like max. Once I'd realized, instead of sometimes it took me like 4 to 5 months to get rid of them. But then now I'm learned, and I would spot. I'd probably get rid of that person in a week now, or if not a few days.
Those are great lessons. Always hire in twos. How did you end up, we'll call it calibrating excellence? Like when you had to hire your first marketing hire, did you lean on people in your network? Did you just read books? What helped you learn over time what makes a good, insert job function?
Yeah, you see great marketers, over time, once you've worked in the business, once you study who's in an industry, when you go to events and you see people speak, to a degree, right? But like generally it's watching your own team evolve and watching skilled people in your own team that you understand like really what great looks like, right? When you see the performance in the metrics, right, and you see that there's a plan that's driving that, and they've devised that plan and then they iterate on that plan. It's seeing good. Right now we just hired a new CFO, Jennifer, and she's just formidable. Like it's just blown my expectation away about how good a CFO can be, right? And I'm learning a lot from her all of a sudden. And so like now I know what great CFO looks like. And so like once you've hired it and you've seen it, then right, for the first time, like, okay, that's what that should look like, right? And the truth is, right, I couldn't have you can't, when you're a really small company, you can only hire to a certain level, right? You can't afford like people that are super experienced, right? And so you have to kind of evolve to that level. So a little bit now, like, of course, I understand that there's the right people for the right stages. You hear that a lot. Now I know that to be true. And also like those people that are fantastic at later stages wouldn't work in a unless it was like a hobby project, right? There's just too little work for them to do, right? There isn't the reward. There's too much risk for them. So again, it's evolving your people, and then hopefully to like a large degree, we're about 50-50 now. Like 50% of our exec team are homegrown, and 50% are and have evolved and have kind of upskilled all the way through their careers, and then 50% are kind of talent we brought in that were right for the level. So I'm quite proud of that we've done that. Like one of the critical lessons there was to make sure that the internal talent was paired with good mentors, and that they would learn from the mentors. So like I think mentorship is so key to skilling up your own team, your current team.
It's always a balancing act, and that can really negatively impact companies if they over-index into either too much homegrown talent, and then they don't have enough people that have seen it before, done it before, or they get rid of all the homegrown talent and then they go over-index on that talent from the outside, and then like the culture disappears and people, even it feels cutthroat and odd.
Yeah, that's the big thing, culture, right? Like the balance has helped us keep culture, and I think the new people coming in feel that. They've said that they feel that. Right? We've got a really really strong culture. You can go look at our Glassdoor reviews, for instance. I think it jumps out from there. But like that's super important. I mean, that gives us the energy, that creates a great atmosphere, that's helped us with growth and through the difficult times. And that's what I'm keen to keep is that culture. And yeah, again, it's like as soon as you bring somebody externally in, they're going to have a culture from whatever org that they had before. If they've been somewhere, they'll bring that in. And so it's like it's very important again to get a lot of personal connection with those individuals. Again, I think it's quite CEO driven, and then that helps to kind of like bring them into the culture and generally creates like a smoother ride, right? Because whenever you're going to bring somebody in that's more senior, they're going to have to bring in a lot of change, right? Like, you're bringing them in because they're bringing in a lot of change. It's like, how do you make that change without it being really destroying of morale and might cause people who are talented to quit. Like, you've got to navigate that, and bringing the person in the right spirit is really key. But again, it's up to the CEO, I think, to drive that and to spend time with the individual to kind of like align them culturally.
Any sort of change management, particularly when it comes from new leadership, can cause friction if it's not done with the right mentality for the right reasons. How many people now across the team?
I think we're approaching 500 now.
That's a lot. Do you know them all still by name?
No, I wish I did. I do a welcome call for all employees, where I go through the company values, I go, all that, which I love doing. I've met them all. I can't say that I'm fantastic at remembering everybody's names. It's great to see. It's great like right now. I really feel that Cognism's kind of upgrading to the next level. It's evolving to the next, we're evolving our processes, our talent, our people, so that we can kind of make that, that movement from, where we are now, about 60 million AR to 300 million AR to IPO, like that will be fairly smooth. I'm feeling pretty confident about that right now.
That must be a damn good feeling, because those are tricky waters to navigate. But it sounds like you've got all the right people. You're focused on the culture, which is huge. So we were talking before this podcast, and this is in the same vein. It's around culture. How many of those people are remote and in office? And do you have a point of view on where you like folks to be?
Yeah, sure. So we say that we have a hybrid policy. We have really good offices globally. Like in London, we just moved into the Shard, which we got like a great deal on. So we got the 11th floor of the Shard, which is fantastic.
Fancy
Office ever
guy.
office. Yeah, we got a really good price though. It was actually literally the cheapest cost per square foot that we saw around the London area. It's right around the corner from our very first office, which is like a little 4-person like hall. Really
Big upgrade.
huge upgrade. Yeah, and it's super energizing going into such an office. And then we've got great office space in Boston. So we really like the SDRs, need to be in the office, and then again, like we try and encourage people to be in the office as much as possible. One of the things that I really like seeing is going into the London office is quite packed all the time. It's full. A lot more people coming in and doing in the office. Again, I really believe that that knowledge sharing is best in the office. We see SDR performance is better in the office. In terms of like just culture, like that. Definitely makes a big impact to be in office. I'm a big fan of in office. I think it's really important. I think also, talking to friends that are remote, especially like remote SDRs, they're quite depressed by being at home all the time, right? So there's also the fact of like, okay, what are we doing? I was lucky, right? When I was, now looking back, I feel lucky that I was in like, when I started my career, there was not even an option of being remote, right? It wasn't fathomable that it was you were in office, like it wasn't even a question, right? Like just building relationships with my managers, my team, learning, picking up little things in the environment, right? Like if you sit in the office, when I go into the office, I listen to the AE conversations, the SDR conversations, I'm listening to the messaging, like I'm picking up what are people saying, what are people complaining about, what's the problems, like, in seconds you can get, your radar can pick up like on lots of little issues that are going on, and you can like, okay, maybe the messaging, like our education isn't working on this topic because like they're talking about something that they shouldn't be talking about, right? Because like there's something's like falling down on enablement. So like again, it's such a different dynamic to being on Zoom calls all day, where you have a set format looking at a set topic, where people can only really speak one at a time. You can only hear one person at a time. I think like it's just critical for me. For me, it's critical, and it's just more fun having an office culture. Like if you're gonna spend like I think the old saying was that you spend more time with your office colleagues than you do with your family, right? Now, do you really want to replace your office colleagues with Zoom video? Like it's like trading days, like my trading days again. It's like you sat in front of your computer all day long on your screen. Like is that really a great way to live? This should be fun, right? This should be fun. It should be fun for you. It should be fun for your employees. It shouldn't be you shouldn't make it more difficult by making it kind of lacking humanity, right? Lacking the connection, lacking the things that like drive us as human beings.
Mm-hmm. I think that's a fantastic perspective, and I do think we're certainly doing a disservice, particularly to people that are new in our industry. Having them fully distributed. Obviously, there's a bunch of pros to it, but there's a lot of cons as well. It'd be much tougher, I think, of my career and starting out, and there's just no way I would have learned as quickly if I only had these Zooms, because I think most of the things I learned were like, on the way to the meeting, or how someone just carried themselves, or, snippets, as he said. So I like that you've got your BDR team in there and give some optionality. All right. I want to go now quickly to our listener question. And this is a good one. And could probably talk about this, for hours and hours. Feels like a lot of people are thinking about it right now. The question was, it's from a VP of sales. And the question is, there seems like a new go-to-market point solution coming out every week. What's your take on the need to haves for an early stage go-to-market stack? Great question.
I think like early market go-to-market stack is having a playbook, right? Like it's having a system, right? The system isn't a technology; it's people. Like if I hire one SDR and I'm cheap, I hire a really cheap SDR, and like I don't like I just buy him a wonderful tool and just give it to him. You're not going to have a sales system there, right? You're going to have a like the shiny tool is probably not going to get set up correctly, is not going to get used correctly, is going to have terrible content on it, right? If I hire two SDRs, right, and they're a bit in competition with one another, and you pay them at, you've paid somebody who's got a little bit of experience, right? And I've got like maybe an AE that's like maybe at least one AE, and I'm supporting that AE directly, then I've got a proper sales, like I've got a bit of a sales system, right? If the AE gets sick, or one of the SDRs got sick, I've still got a sales system that will run that day, right? That I can respond to replies to, right? That I can do calls to, right? I can drive metrics on a daily basis, right? So like a system isn't a tool; it's a set of people that are sharp, smart, where there's redundancy built into the system. You need that. I've seen it plenty of times now, like small companies going cheap, maybe hiring one SDR, getting to 360 when they got no A experience, right? Fail destroys the company. Again, you need to build like a good, like a redundant sales pod, what I call it. Like, I say at least two SDRs, one A, and the founder supporting the A, and the SDR in the room with them, so that you can teach them, you can communicate with them. I think it was so critical for Cognism in our first, early days, that we had, an office that we were all sat in, like however bad the, like, let's say that, however, I would say like bad some of the first hires were, we got them into a system because we were in the room. I don't know how that would have worked remotely, or how I would have driven people remotely. Like, again, like I would think that would increase the failure rate of getting that system going. having everybody in the room, being able to hear what they're saying, being able just to see what they're doing, right, and see that they are doing the activities they're not meant to be doing, and they're not, watching YouTube all day, right, or whatever it is, right, like it's just like that's so important. So I think if you want to give yourself a chance, let's not forget, right, the chances of getting a business to to get it even like to survive, right? To get it to 1 million AER, right? I think it's like 5% of businesses get to like 1 million AER, or even lower than 5%. So if you want to give it a shot, then you need to really build good systems, right? Everything's about systems, and then it's evolving and continuously improving the systems. And systems involve people, and then and systems need people to look over them to keep on innovating and evolving the systems. You don't get away with not having people, right? Like that. There's no AI silver bullet that's going to like change that. And so I think it's important to have like that minimal pod.
I think it's a great answer. So you start with people, layer on the process, those people run the process, tweak the process, and then and only then do you even look at technology. And you're only looking at that to increase efficiencies where it's breaking down. And then you can start thinking about, hey, maybe we need sales intelligence tool, maybe we need a sales engagement tool, maybe we need revenue intelligence, but those should be a byproduct of the system like slowing down or not meeting the demands.
Yeah, and so your system's continuously evolving and going to a higher level, and tools can make certain metrics better, but you need human intelligence on that system to evolve it to the next level.
That is a fantastic answer in this age of everyone looking for AI to solve their problems. It's the human intelligence that's gonna solve it.
Yeah.
Final two questions, and I keep them intentionally vague. Allows you to take them anywhere you want. And the first question is, what is one tactic or strategy that founders or revenue leaders believe to be true that you think is bullshit or no longer serving us?
I think like one of the things I'm seeing recently, which I guess alarms me a little bit, is I'm seeing particularly US companies like almost pulling back from going international, and pulling back from Europe, and taking their sales and marketing leadership and taking that to North America, like taking that back to the US, and then trying to run everything from the US. I think that if you look at the previous crop of successful SaaS companies like Salesforce, right? For instance, right, they've gone international and they've been very successful building very local presence in all the key markets. And I think like I don't know why that this generation of SaaS companies, like quite a lot of them, seem to be really struggling with that. So again, I think that doing the hard work, right? Understanding local markets, understanding that you have to keep building sales capacity, right? It's like a number, it's like a basic rule, right? And you should be expanding that sales capacity and building sales capacity in countries, right? Everybody that needs sales intelligence or like SaaS products in the US, they need those also in Germany and France and Spain. Again, you need to communicate and tailor those products maybe to those local markets a bit, and you need to hire local talent that knows how to sell and communicate to those markets in those languages. But these are huge markets, and I'd say that just that grind of like having to do the work to kind of tailor your product and your service and your messaging and the hiring, all of the processes you develop from North America can be built in the UK and France and Germany, but they need to be tailored to those markets. So again, you need to do the work to understand the differences, and then they're great markets. Like they're big markets. The markets are there as well. So again, if it's not working, it's not because your product or service is failing. It's probably just your go to market, and you need to tailor that to each geography you're going after.
I think one of the issues there, and I've seen it again and again, and I see the pullback too, is just not setting expectations and expecting immediate results. And then the board comes down or leadership comes down, and you're 6 months into a EMEA expansion and you're not hitting the numbers that you thought you would. And so the immediate impulse is to like, okay, pull back, it's not working. Whereas, this is it's almost like starting another business.
It's a startup, yeah, and like you think about it, are you putting the resources, the time, and are you following the same go to market in that new startup in that country as you did in your home country, right? Or are you maybe like taking, maybe you've evolved and you're like selling to enterprises now in the US, and now you're going into and you're trying to sell in the same way into a market that needs education, that's a lot smaller, that you don't have a market name for. You need to like be a startup again in each country you go in. And you need to think in that startup mentality and think back to how was a lot of businesses sell in, they sell SMB first, right? Are you selling to those SMB customers? Are you building a base? Are you building a reputation, right? Are you learning from your mistakes? Are you iterating, right? Are you messaging to that market correctly? Probably not, right? You're probably going in with the same playbook that you're running at US, which is too heavy a playbook for that market at that point in time. So it's about evolving. It's like treating it like it's a startup.
Great stuff.
That's how we went into the US market, because it's interesting, because a lot of before we went into the US market, I went and questioned a few, I had a couple of sessions with UK CEOs that had actually failed in the US market. And again, the typical story is, you go in, you hire, a named famous, or like someone who's worked for a famous brand company, and you hire them and bring them in, and then of course it lasts 6 months and they go away. Why? You've got no brand, you've got no system there, you've got no pipeline. They used to having giant pipelines running for, and they're used to making lots of commission. Like, it's a startup. You're gonna have to grind. And that's how we started. We brought one of our key people over to New York, and then we built a business over 2 years and grinded out at a very low level. And then when it was ready for the next level, then we could actually hand over like a book of business. We could hand over systems. We could hand over, like, everything was set up and rolling and had been running for at least 2 years, so that there was then something to build on top of, right? Like, if we had hired the team that we had now and just said get going, it would be a disaster. And I've seen that disaster multiple times now. So again, you have to take some of your, well, at least one of your key people over to implement culture, and then you need to like grind it out like a startup in those countries until you've built a good book of business, and then you can upgrade the talent.
That absolutely sounds like the right approach for breaking into the US, and then vice versa if you want to, break into other international, whether it's EMEA, UK. All right, final question, and really appreciate this chat. It's been awesome. The final question is, what is one tactic or strategy that has been working for you that leaders can implement that should positively move the needle?
Well, I give credit to this to Alice, who's our CMO, who I would plug her book, First Time Diary of a CMO. It's very successful in the in Amazon right now. You can find it. So really to ungate our content, so creating these value loops. So our marketing team talks about value loops. If you just look at our traffic, look at our traffic on something like SimilarWeb or Exploding Trends or any of those, you'll see that we have great consistent traffic build, and we don't use SEO, indexing, and those types of strategies. Like, it's really strong build of like high quality traffic that comes in, and that's like our marketing team delivering like high value ungated content. And I think like that's worked very, very well for us. And I'd urge you to dive into Alice's blog posts and reading her book about like the tactics we've done there to make that successful. But we've got a formidable marketing team.
Beautiful. And what was the name of that book again? Can you say it one more time?
The Diary of a First Time CMO.
I love that. Great title too. Awesome. Well, James, it's been super fun, man. I know it's getting late over there, so hopefully I'm your final meeting of the day. Hopefully you can close that laptop now, maybe pour yourself a drink and do whatever you do to unwind. But it's been fun, and excited to get over your way. I think we'll be headed out their way, I think November. So excited to catch up in person. Are you coming to our retreat in September in Napa?
It is after sale at the Dreamforce.
It's in between SaaStr and Dreamforce. We're doing that weekend.
I'll be around. That sounds great.
I think we have 100 people already confirmed, so it'll be a heck of a group. But cool. And for all those listeners who joined us today, I always say about listening's one thing, executing is everything. So take some of these lessons, some of these stories, apply it to your business, and we'll see you next week.
Thanks, Scott.